Welcome back to the warehouse. Today we're going to go over how to replace the motor in
I'm going to start by taking off the wheel.
Yeah, so we'll start by taking off this wheel on this 800. We're going to take the wheel off of this 800, but it's going to be the same process for every bike. Well, I've got two tools with me. I've got a wrench, monkey wrench, and I've got a pair of dikes. I'm going to use the dikes. I'm just going to cut off these two zip ties right here. Be careful not to snip the wire. So this is the motor cable right here. And once I have those snipped, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull that apart just so that's ready. Then what I wanna do is, I have my bike just up here leaning, but I made sure before I put it up here to ship down into the lowest gear. That way I know when I put it back on that I'm just gonna line the chain up with that smallest cog. It's the highest gear. I said lowest gear earlier. Smallest cog. Let's go with the smallest cog.
It doesn't matter. Nobody knows the difference.
It's true.
Highest, lowest, biggest, smallest, potato.
Yeah. Okay, then I'm gonna pull off these two caps. So there's one cap on this side. There should be one cap on the other side. This one, I already took it off. And then I'm just gonna use and just loosen up these silver nuts here. And remember to lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Because I've got my wheel in the air, I'm not gonna loosen this like all the way up until I kind of have both sides pretty close. And I'm gonna keep one hand on it just so it doesn't go flying on me. Okay, and then once I got that loosened up, I'm ready to just slide it off. I think this needs to go just a little bit more.
Another good idea is to pay attention to how these are put together, what order the washers are in, and which directions they're facing, and all that stuff. So if you think you might have trouble remembering, always a good idea is to take a picture with a cell phone. So when you put it back together, you see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look on this side, so I've got one washer here, I've got the nut, then I have one washer. And on the inside, I've got this, we call them the torque washers. They've got a little tab. And it's gonna be the same thing for this other side over here. One nut, one washer. Okay, so once I loosen these up, I realize it's still pretty tight in here. And so sometimes what happens, especially on these on the 800s sometimes, and in the 650s, I see this happen. The axle kind of turns and pivots in there. And so I'm gonna use this monkey wrench to just kind of twist it back into the direction it needs to be. And you can see it just slides right out when I do that. So what happened is the torque of the motor caused the whole axle to pivot just a little bit, and it didn't want to slide out.
And it just got bound up in there, right?
Yeah, so you can see it kind of like bit in right there. Okay,
so now you got the tire off. You're ready to either replace the tube, replace the motor, lots of different things you can do from here.
All right, we got the wheel off the bike and we're ready to remove the motor. So first step is we got to take off the nuts and washers on both sides.
And again, this is take a picture of this so you don't mix up the order that they go on, because it's important they match up a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. On this side, of course, I've got the cable end. So the XF 690 and the 650, you'll be able to slide the nut all the way off, but you aren't able to do that with the motor that's on the 800 and the 900. The threads here are a little bit worn, so I'm just spin that loose. Okay, so we got the washers pulled off. Now we're ready. I'm ready to remove the motor now. So for that, I need this cassette tool. We'll send a link of where to get one in the description. So this cassette tool, what we had to do with it, a typical one is complete all the way around. But because this cable or the motor plug-in end here is so thick, it's really hard to find one that fits it that slides over top. and you can't slide the nuts and washers off anyway. So if you have a Bafang motor, which is on the 900 or the 800, you're gonna have to cut it like we did here. If you have a 650 or a 690, they have a different motor, and so you're able to just slide it on.
Depending on which one you get, it'll slide over that.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to drill it out a bit to get it to slide over that cable. But.
All right, so we got this tool in, and we're ready to loosen up this, I guess the nut that's kind of in here. So I'll go ahead and use these around pretty tight. But as soon as I get it just a little bit loose, I can then spin it the rest of the way with my fingers. You can see just like that. I've got that off. Okay. And then I got this tool in pretty tight, so I'm gonna have to wiggle it a little bit to get it off.
So that's if you want to go ahead and swap the cassette at some point, that's how you go about doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
Show us that tool one more time, Wyatt.
This tool?
Yeah. Voila. Yeah, we're still looking to find the right one on Amazon, so we'll post a link for a place to purchase that when we get it.
So I'm gonna have to slide all this plastic all the way off just to get the cassette off. But once I do, my cassette is now free and I'm good to remove the motor. So I double check, make sure I don't have any washers or nuts on the opposite side. And if you look here, so on the Bafang motor,
hey Wyatt, real quick, yeah. show us what a replacement motor will come, how it will come to.
So we'll send it to you. It'll look like this. So this right here is like
the shell.
Yeah, basically, it looks like if you get it and you're a little bit nervous, it looks like you'd have to put all the spokes on. Really, it's much simpler than that. So I'll show you how to remove these six screws, and it just slides right out. And so that's what we're going to do here with this one that we've got. So on the 800 and the 900, it's a Torx, I believe a T20. On the XF650 and the 690, it is a Phillips screwdriver. So I'll just go ahead and just pop these loose with my Torx here. Okay, so I've got those all removed. Now I'm just going to use the table that I got here, or the cart, and I'm just going to stick this axle just on the edge here.
Okay.
Just so I can pop that loose, and then once I do, that just slides right on out. And there's your motor. So once I've got that out, then I'm ready to grab the new one. Now the new one, we already went ahead and pulled it out of this, it's like sleeve jacket. Yeah, so if you want to, like, one thing you can do is kind of just make sure there's no gunk or crap in here. They use a pretty sticky white grease in here, so don't worry about that. It's supposed to be there. But yeah, once I got that all checked out, then I'm good to just slide the new one in. And you can kind of just, oh, it just slid right in. And then I'll slide this top piece over till all the screw holes line up. And then once I do that, I'm ready to get these screws started. And they're pretty short, so they're kind of hard to start by hand, but it's always smart to do that. Okay, so I got those all started. And then go ahead and just run them in. And as I use them as I start the tool on it, I want to just double check and make sure that they're threading in smoothly and I'm not forcing them back in. Don't want to strip anything out.
And you do a star pattern when you tighten them?
Yeah.
It's always a good idea.
Yeah, always a good idea. I don't know how crazy important it is, but always a good idea. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back and just make sure they're all tightened in there good. Okay, once I got that, I'm ready to now reinstall the cassette back onto this one. So I got to pull off this plastic thing again. Okay, get my cassette here. And so this piece, I don't know if you look, the only real piece that's moving is this inner piece. And so if you kind of want to get it started by hand, you can actually just spin the whole entire cassette and it'll start to tighten it for you. Then I got to get my cassette tool back wherever I set it.
And if you lose your tools, just go ahead and blame your kids, because it was probably them.
That's right. So my dad always gets mad at me for losing his tools. And this one, we had to make sure our tool's a little bit of a tight fit, so I'm just pushing it down in, make sure I got it in there snug.
Because if it's not snug, you run the risk of it skipping and doing some damage to that.
Exactly.
Now you'll see if you can hear it snap, or if it just, now that you've pushed it in. All right, so with that on.
Okay, now I've got that tightened on. Ready to pull my tool out. I'll put my plastic piece in, and then before I get it, or before I take it back to the bike, I'm gonna go ahead and slide my washers back to where they're supposed to be. So here's where you hope you remembered how they go on. But on this, the drive side of the axle, there's a slot where the cable comes out of, and you want that to be facing down on the bike. So when you put this first washer, the torque washer on, you want this tab to be on the same side as that. Then my next washer, doesn't matter, it's just a straight washer. And then I'll just get my nut started.
Yeah, because once you start that nut, you're not going to be able to swap that bottom washer around to face it the other way.
Exactly. And this is they put a nylock on this side, so it's kind of stiff, so I'm just going to use this tool to just kind of help it keep it going. And I'll probably just leave it right there for now. Tighten it the rest of the way. You want to leave a little gap for when you put it back on the bike. All right, then on this other side, I'm ready. So what I got to make sure I watch here is I want this tab on this side to be on the same side on this side as well, if that makes sense. So this tab's got to be pointing that way, and I've got this one pointing that way towards the camera. Means I'm good to go. Then I'll slide this washer on. You can tell on this side it's got wear from the bike, so I'll just put that back on the bike side. And then this outer washer goes on. This is not a nylock, so it slides on a lot easier. And we're ready to go reinstall our wheel onto the bike. All right, so we've got our repair taken care of on our wheel or our motor, and we're ready to reinstall the wheel on the bike. So easy enough. I flipped my bike upside down because it's just easier to allow the weight of the wheel to kind of center it on the rear fork here.
You can use a couple boxes or whatever just to make sure that computer doesn't hit the ground. Don't want to damage that.
Yeah, exactly. So what I want to do now is just make sure that I line up the top groove here so that it's facing straight up, so that when I slide it on, it'll fit in the groove here of where the axle is going to slide into. And if I remember right, before I took the wheel off, I shifted it into its lowest gear. So they're the smallest one. So as I put the bike back on, I'll line the chain up with the smallest one. So I can do that. I'll put the cable through first. And then I'm just gonna see if I set that right on there. And then I can kind of grab the derailleur like so. And it'll just kind of run on like that. And I make sure I'm lined up here, and I double check to make sure that my brake is lined up. And as you can see, it just slides right in.
Make sure it's sitting all the way in on both sides, right?
Yep. So I make sure that it's sitting all the way in, double check that it's flush here and there, and I'm ready to start tightening these both sides. And on this left side, it's got a nylock, so I'm just gonna use my wrench here because it's a little bit tight. Okay, so I started getting snug on that side, then I'm gonna go to this side and just snug it up on this side as well. And then I can start cranking it. And you want this to be pretty tight because we've had issues in the past of the motor's got enough torque in it that it'll start to slip out if you don't have it tight enough. Okay, then next step is I'm gonna kind of push this cable down because that's where the groove is here. I'm gonna get ready to plug in, and what you wanna watch for is there's a little arrow right here on the male end and a little arrow on the female end right there. And so I wanna line those up because that'll tell me how to plug it in. And just push that tight. I'm good to push this little thing on. And my wheel is installed. Now the only last thing I need to do is I'll need to adjust my derailleur and then zip tie this back in and double check to make sure the brake's not rubbing. And then you're good to go riding.